Uh, Actually, I think that my love for music started about 25 years ago when I first listened to DJ and producer Paul Van Dyke. Don't judge me. Those were other times, obviously. And I was young. But yes, and then there was this game called MTV Music Generator for PlayStation 1, where you could take loops and accommodate them and create songs. So I wanted to create music. I wanted to make music, but I ended behind the scenes, like today. So I've been about 14 years in the music industry. I've gathered experience in music media outlets. I was an editor-in-chief for Indie Rocks magazine. That's a very renowned alternative music magazine in Mexico City, well, in Mexico and in Latin America. Then I partnered with them and we created lots of amazing things. I've also been in the concert and party and festival promotion area. I founded Mayor Tom. That's a promoting agency here in Mexico City. It still has a cool festival called Hypnosis. I also have experience in booking, both selling and buying talent. I've worked with some cool talents in Mexico, alternative. Nowadays, I'm in record labels and DSPs. I'm part of Industrial Works, it's a LA-based company. We have a few verticals in the business. One's Nacional Records, Latin alternative music centered record label, and Moodworks, that we have a catalog for functional music. And yeah, I also been in getting sponsorships for artists, for events. So I think virtually I've covered all of the areas. I'm only missing legal and publishing. But yes, that's me. I really do love music. It's my passion. And what I do, actually, to be more specific, at Industrial Works, my time is basically 85% Moodworks, the functional music catalog, and I'm in charge of pitching our weekly releases to DSPs globally. So that's the 85% of my time, and the other 15% I work with National Records, part of the company, as I said. I'm the lead for Paua. Paua, that's a Mexican artist. She's an alternative artist, and I too work with DSPs for Paua on the frontline side. So yeah, DSPs are my day-to-day.
Great. Thank you so much for that brilliant introduction, Sergio. There's so much to learn from you. So let's get started right away. I think the first thing that I would love to jump in is, let's imagine that, we are artists. We're just starting out from scratch. We're on our release 0 or 1. We're, doing a single release. We're doing a first or second EP. And of course, we're seeing these people on covers for playlists every day. We're seeing everyone around us getting playlisted every day on multiple platforms. And we're on step 0 right now. How do we get from 0 to 10? What is the strategy behind building or even starting a relationship with a DSP when you're so emerging as an artist and you have no label support? You're just distributing with a DistroKid or a CD Baby. So like ground zero level. So how do you get started there?
Yeah, well, I think that there's some things we all need to consider when we are young and we are seeing others' success and we want to get there. But let's go yes to the 0 point. First, general consideration: there is no recipe for success. Okay, because it's amazing. Like when you see I don't know, in the Latin side, Bad Bunny, or this new guy that we have here in Mexico, Peso Pluma. I don't know if you have heard about it. Maybe you have, obviously. He went from 0 to 10 in a year, right? But it's just 1 in a million. When it comes to actual earthlings like us that are starting from scratch, yeah, there is no recipe for success. There is no manual. There is no format to get 100 million streams. It all depends on a lot of things, obviously, that we will discuss here. But of course, though there is no format or manual, you do need to have a game plan, right? It's key to get better results in the long term. So that's for starters. No recipe. Then there's some things that we all need to understand on this, who we are. Well, I'm going to talk about you with your projects, who you are, right? It seems a little bit obvious, the question, but you need to be sure, where are you standing? What's your context, like social, geographical, what's your mission, what's your vision for the project, and and the music that you create. It's super important. Why are you creating this music? Where do you want to go with it, right? Because maybe you don't want to be a superstar. Maybe you just want to hit the ceiling of the niche that you are in. So understanding this from the start is very, very important for me. And this obviously may imply other things, such as having a clear concept, developing a target, creating relations with other musicians, forging strong and long-time relationships with DSPs. That's what what we will be talking about here. But that's marketing, right? The other things, like the concept, the target, that's a bit of marketing. That there's another talk about marketing with Liliane in a few days. She's great, by the way. Then other things that second and important, as important as the first point, is we need to understand that music is a product. Okay. Yeah, I know. As every other product in the world, you say, I don't know, a beer or a bar soap, or a bar of soap. It needs to be marketed. Music needs to be marketed. So for some, this can be troubling, because I know artists believe in art and you surely see as a part of yourself, maybe even as an ethereal something that cannot be sold as a beer or a bar of soap. No. But I must break it to you. It can be sold and it should be sold. So in this sense, DSPs are these stores where you will offer your products to millions of possible customers all over the world. And if you can get this idea, for example, on my side, I'm behind the scenes. I work with musicians and with music. So I am 50% art and 50% product. And I think that if every musician in the world could understand this as I'm telling, it would be very easy. Well, not very, but easier to sell this product that it's not a real product, right? Then third thing, you will always depend on someone else's criteria, right? And it may be your audience, it may be the owner of a label you want to sign with, it may be the programmer of your local venue, and of course, it will be the DSP editorial playlist curators, right? This is important to understand, so you can manage expectations on what you can or will achieve in the future. So criteria, we always depend on someone, everyone. Other thing important, you may not deserve what you think you deserve, right? Sometimes one thinks that an idea, a proposal, or a song in one's mind will be groundbreaking, right? But it may not be the same for the person in the other side of the screen or the table or the phone who you are talking to. Again, managing expectations is very important. You may think your song or album can fit in an editorial program or in an editorial playlist, but that's not for you to decide. It's managing expectations, and again, understanding that we depend on someone else's criteria. And the fifth thing that I think it's very important to understand is PR is everything. Everything. This is a people's industry, and who you know, who you hang out with, who you have a beer with will actually make a difference, right? Of course, there are examples of artists, bedroom artists, that are geniuses and that for some reason they don't leave their bedroom and they make a hit. I think that, yeah, I will remember a name shortly. But for me, the mantra is see and be seen. You don't need to be afraid of talking to people, showing your music, asking for advice, sharing an idea. Just, there's a very important thing here: don't be a pain in the ass, because sometimes people confuse being social or being PR-ish with really bothering the people that they want to get to. So that's very important. And always find the right time and moment to do it. Those are my 5 first like points to understand on our single side before engaging or trying to engage with DSPs or people on DSPs, right? It's I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, I think 100%, like having a clear vision and concept is so important. And artist branding is something that sometimes artists tend to neglect, but is a really important piece of the puzzle, because unless you're creating something that you stand by and it's authentic to you, people are not going to relate. And I think the biggest thing in music is your fans relating to you, being that best friend, or connecting with your music and feeling like it's written for them, right? Like we all have that song that we listen to and it's like, shit, like it's replaying a part of my life, or it's talking to me, or it's speaking with me. So I think that's really important, and that only happens when you create art that you believe in, that it aligns with your vision or your identity as an artist. So focusing on artist identity is definitely a really big thing, which you've made very clear, and you've dropped some truth bombs here. I think another one about just like not being a pain in the ass and being able to connect with people in a meaningful way, but also not being afraid to cold calling is something that's really important, that artists sometimes miss out on, and sometimes they have doubts about their art, which is understandable. But I think it's important to kind of put yourself out there enough times as an artist, especially when you're starting out, because you don't know who you connect with or who shows interest and where that can take you. Every person you want to reach out to is literally 1 or 2 degrees away from you. It's only a matter of time that you reach them. So
Yes,
cold calling is definitely 100% important.
of course. And there's something that I think I missed there, and it's be ready for rejection, right?
Yeah.
Because again, people may not like your music. I work with an artist that it's amazing. She's like electronic tropical, and there's a festival here in Mexico in December called Tropico. So this festival is beach, poolside, electronic tropical music, and this artist is electronic tropical genre, and they don't want to book her. And you know why they don't want to book her? Because they don't like how she sings. The owner of the festival doesn't like how she sings. And again, it's the criteria of someone. Maybe the project is perfect for this festival. Maybe, because it's perfect for playlists that on a tropical mood, and all the DSPs are supporting her, whatever. But this specific guy, this specific festival, doesn't want her there. So rejection will always be there, and we also need to be ready for that.
Yeah, and also not take it personally, right? Because there's enough tropical music festivals out there to reach out to if this one's not working out. So I think it's also a really good tip. So okay, so the artist has now started out, has done their first few releases. They have focused on their artist identity. They're trying to do local shows in their local venues. They're putting themselves out there. They've done enough cold calls. Some of them have converted. They have some PR game going. And now what's next? Like, how do you move on from this whole DistroKid, CD Baby type of distribution? What do you expect from these distributors, and what's the next level?
Let me go back to the DistroKids, to the like these plain simple distributors, right? Because I think that the DSP relationships can start there. In the end, where you are a DIY, you work with this CD Baby, Tunco, or whatever. You select your type of service, you pay a fee, you get your royalties, and maybe some other things depending on the distributor, right? For example, Tunco in Mexico, I know for a fact that they work with a few brands, and sometimes they get deals for artists, like sponsorships or gigs, or like work for hire. But that's something that usually these type of distributors don't give to you. So DSP relationships at this point may seem distant because you're still there, you're starting, But well, you can always use the 21st century digital tools and try to connect with the people that can make some magic for you or with you, right? It's easy, but sometimes lots of musicians miss it. It's like LinkedIn for starters, right? It's a good way to search for specific positions because your music will be out, will be distributed, but it won't be playlisted. So you need to connect with these people. It's as simple as typing the name of the DSP on the search tab on LinkedIn and go to the option people, and boom, there they are, right? You are a click away from them. But I think that we also need to understand, who do I talk to, okay? Because it's not just, yes, I've got the name of someone at Spotify or someone at Apple Music, right? It's no. Who do I talk to? Of course, you will be looking for the playlist programmer, right? The editors. But some DSPs are friendlier than others when it comes to editorial contact. For example, Spotify is very picky with musicians and labels having direct contact with the programmers, but maybe Apple Music does. It's not, right? So if the programmer is your friend, great, you're in, right? But if not, it's important that you look for the artist and label partnerships or artist and label relations person, okay? Every DSP has one, or two or three. It could be the lead, it could be the senior, the junior, but you will eventually find a point of contact there. It's like the intermediary between labels, artists, and the editors. So that's the person that you're looking for. Then obviously, when you find that person and that position, again on LinkedIn, it's preparing an elevator pitch, right? It's important, very important. I think maybe 2 or 3 4-line paragraphs, right, that resume your project and how it sounds, and then ask for the contact info. Hey, whatever, blah blah blah. No, my elevator pitch. Can I send you an email? And some will reply, some won't reply. Of course, if you don't get it on LinkedIn, there's always Instagram, and there's always being a pain. But there are tools to find people, no? Or maybe why don't we think about the old ways, a phone call, right? No one does that anymore. No one tries to reach someone by phone. I remember when I finished college, I wanted to get into a journalist program in a very important newspaper here in Mexico City. So I called the paper. Okay, this was 15 years ago or more, but still, it's an interesting thing to tell. I called the paper. I asked for the editorial director, who obviously didn't take my call, but I got to talk with the manager of the program, of the journalist program, and she told me, "Hey, send me an email." And 4 weeks later, I was sitting there and taking the course. So it's again all about asking, searching, finding, calling, talking, right? So that's the way for starters that you start the relationship. That's ground zero. And to be honest, this can be a difficult task. Really, it can be, but it's worth a try. I think that if you can connect with someone, you should focus on marketing your music, then using other tools such as socials, maybe playing live, because if they're not paying you attention on LinkedIn, email, whatever, they should pay attention with the other things that you are doing around your project, no? So also sharing with other people in the industry may lead to a DSP to pay attention to what you're doing if you can't connect with this like start pack. And if this works and you get a good connect or connects on DSPs, and we are thinking plural here, it's DSPs because I think it's important to mention that maybe the 99% of musicians are looking for Spotify, but remember, there's Amazon, there's Apple, there's local DSPs that may work for you and that you should contact too. So the goal is having good relationships with every DSP in the world, right? That's the main goal, or at least with the 3 more important for the project, and the locals, obviously.
That's a really good point, actually, that a lot of people actually end up focusing so much on Spotify and Spotify playlists, which I'm sure it's also because Spotify playlists are the most well known and most revered. But for example, in India, we also have Wink Music and we have YouTube Music, which is really popular here, which gets quite neglected. So actually, people from those platforms are so open to building a relationship because people barely reach out to them. So they haven't really reached that point of saturation just yet with emails and phone calls and messages. So yeah, this strategy totally works. It has worked in my first single as well. So I vouch for this, Sergio. This is legit stuff.
Thanks. Yeah, right. See, for example, and it all adds up, right? We're talking about streams here. In the end, you want a relationship with DSPs because you want to stream your music, and you want to get paid for that, for those streams. So at this point with the DIY distribution, you're basically getting 100% of your royalties just for you. So it's worth the try. It's difficult, yes, but it's worth the try. And for example, here in Mexico, we have Claro Música, right? This is Claro depends on Carlos Slim. Carlos Slim is the richest man in Mexico, and I think like the fourth man or fifth in the world. So imagine the possibilities that you could have. It's a very small DSP, obviously, but it has presence in 14 countries in Latin America. So if you land some partnership with this DSP, you may be listened from Argentina and Chile and Brazil to Colombia and Mexico. And maybe the streams will be 100,000, but again, it all adds up. And if you get a cover, you can put it on socials. You can start talking about what you get, and it's easier, obviously, to get to a smaller DSP than to Spotify or Amazon, right? And it's if it's smaller and if it's local in your territory, well, it should be easier. Right?
Yeah, 100% agreed. So great. So I think the key takeaway from this is look for editors, but if it's Spotify, maybe look for artist and label partnership person and try to build a relationship there. So
yes, and sorry to interrupt, but
yeah.
This is important. If we have two points here, you did it or you didn't. If you didn't, work around the DSP and try to get their attention otherwise. But if you did, this relationship must be maintained, right? If you're an independent, you don't have a label, you don't have label services, whatever, you must maintain the relationship that you created. You must stay active. And this applies for when you are DIY, or when you have a label services, that we're going to talk about it in a bit, or when you are in a major label or an indie label, right? Staying active is key for your relationship with DSPs. Music should keep flowing. Release plans, achievements, marketing drivers should be shared with them on time, obviously. You need to use the DSP's artist tools for artists tools that most of them have. And again, don't be a pain. You can share, but you can't share daily. You can share weekly. You need to manage time when things, right?
And can you also tell us how much in advance of a release a person should ideally be sending these things across? I think that's a really key thing to keep in mind as well for artists.
Yes, it's key. And I'm gonna talk from my experience, and a very good experience that I have with this project that I work in Nacional called Paua. We actually planned with her 10 months before the release. So I know this is virtually impossible, right? But this is something that actually works. I know it for a fact. I've seen it. So when Paua told us, hey, I wanna release my first album, we told her, yes, of course, we're with you, but we need the music. We started planning 10 months before. We need the music 8 months before. Of course, there was a delay. We got it 6 months before, but we were pitching the album to DSPs 4 months before the release of the first single, right? And we did this strategy of, it's a 10-track LP. We had 4 singles, and then the release of the LP with a focus track. So we were pitching the whole album with a calendar of releases that obviously it may change in time, but we had the calendar of releases, the release of the LP, and a mini marketing digital strategy for this piece pitched 4 months before the start of the release of the first single. So we were talking by that it was like 9 months before the release of the album. We were pitching to DSPs, and this worked because they love to see plans. When they see a plan, they see that the artist is committed, they see that the artist is going to work. And when I say plan, I actually mean a presentation, you know, like an EPK, where you say, this is the album, this is the concept, this is what we're going to do, these are the singles. If there's collaborations, this is the collaboration I did it because it's important, because blah blah blah, right? So all of it should be there, and they love it. They really love it. And what did we get? Tons of editorial support on every DSP that we wanted to, because yeah, we got the equal program for her on Spotify, you know, like her face in Times Square. We got lots of covers on Amazon, Apple, Tidal, Claro Música, you know, we got that because everybody knew what was coming, and everybody on this piece could prepare for that. So yeah, I hope
that's amazing, Sergio. I have a quick question about something you said, that she did a 10-song album and you decided to do 4 singles and then a feature track with the album. So you got a chance to pitch for playlists on the back end, which, if it even means anything, 5 times. But I want to know, like, about the release strategy part of it. If someone's releasing a single or an EP or an album, how do they space this out? And what is I mean, there's no right way to do things, there's no system, but what has worked for you so far?
Yeah, I think that, well, we've worked with artists that have different ideas. For example, Paua at first, she wanted to do EPs, right? So with EPs, we usually take the half of the EP or album for singles, and the other half it goes out with the album or EP release. So in this case, a 4-track EP, we would have 2 singles, and then we release the EP. And on the album, 5 and 5. So the time that we have between singles, it's about 4 to 5 weeks. So first single, January 1st, say something, and then we work it, we pitch it, we repitch it. If we don't get playlists, then we wait for a week, and we go back to the DSP and say, hey, you missed this one. We also send a playlist wish list. This is something that, I don't know, some people like and some people don't. So that you need to be careful with what you wish or what you ask for, and it all depends on how your relationship is with these persons, right? Is you may ask, hey, can I suggest playlist for you? They may say no. That's a work for the editorial team, or they may say, yeah, of course, whenever you want, please suggest. You obviously don't want to ask for more, for tons of playlists, and those playlists should be obviously in the right sense for your music. But yeah, so we do that. Single, repitch, and work that single for, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks, maybe 6, depending on if the single is successful or not. And obviously those weeks are not just DSP relationships, but digital marketing, press, you know, that kind of things. We also, if we get press or other marketing drivers through those weeks, we communicate that to the DSP, so they can see what's happening with the track outside the platforms, right? Obviously, milestones. If suddenly the track is a success, obviously with the independent artists, a success is getting 50,000 plays in a week, right? That's very, very successful. So we also shared that with them, and also that the being grateful thing, it helps. It's like, you don't need to be licking boots, but obviously if they are supporting you, you need to be grateful with them. And that's something that we need to remember always. And then just to complete this answer, there are artists that do want to have a single strategy, like a singles strategy. So they don't want to release an LP or an EP. They just want to release singles, and that's like the most common thing right now. You can see that. And again, it's the same thing, like 4, 5, 6 weeks tops, and then the other single. But this is very interesting because you can stay active the whole year. For example, this strategy that we had with Paua, again, we started releasing music. The first single was released in March. Then, like March, April, May, June, June, July, the album, and then we had this strategy of keeping 2 songs of the album like secret, right? So we are doing a re-release of the album with a new single in September, and then a re-release of the album in October. So we are covering the whole year. That's why I was telling, stay active. Maybe it's not so easy for bands to create music and, like having like 10, 12 tracks a year, but that's the way the game is played right now. So if you can do it, you should. And you should cover the whole year. Maybe don't think about December and January, because those are months that no one's going to be paying attention, and maybe releasing music there, it won't be interesting. But if you can cover February through November, and you're sending, releasing, doing collaborations, whatever, that's a good way to stay active. And again, that's the way the world works right now. We're part of a system, and if we want to be there, we should go with the flow, at least on that side, right?
Yeah, 100%, Sergio. So we have about 25 minutes left. So I want to quickly jump into label services. But this has been so insightful. I think everyone has at least one takeaway to go and implement in their strategy. So thank you so much for that. So now let's move on from the ground zero level distributors. I want to know, like, and as brief as you can be, how do you jump from a CD baby, DistroKid, TuneCore type of a distributor to a label service? What is a label service, and how do you get there before you make the jump to a label?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. How long should you stay with the DIY model, right? Well, for me, it's a tough one, but it's when you feel that you are not able to fulfill all the tasks that the project needs to keep growing, that's when you have to jump, right? It's time to up the game and ask for a little help. That's the thing. Well, because you will see that. You will see that there's too much, because people are listening to you, DSPs are asking for things, press, whatever. Maybe gigs are popping out. So that's when you feel that you are not able to fulfill all the tasks that the project needs to keep growing.
Yeah.
When? You will know.
Yeah, okay, got it. And if you have to quickly summarize the key points of a good label services contract, because that's when things get a bit tricky.
Yeah.
How does it work?
For example, for starters, what are label services, right? It's marketing, it's promotion, it's distribution, it's sync, maybe sales, rights management, analytics. That's a label service, and that's what maybe some aggregators can give you, maybe some label services companies can give you, right? I don't know. You were asking about the contract?
Yeah, can you actually first quickly tell us some popular examples of label services, so just so people know exactly what kind of companies we're talking about?
I don't.
So, for example, Believe Music, I think, is one of the big ones around the world.
Yeah, Believe does that. Maybe the Orchard does that.
The Orchard, yeah.
But those are aggregators / label services.
Yeah.
What the thing is, what will be the pro of being with them, right?
Yeah.
The pro is that maybe you have more budget. Obviously, they are talking to DSPs for you, and they usually work with other labels. And for example, the Orchard, they usually don't sign individual artists, but they will take you to a indie label that they work with, right? At least in Mexico, that's how they work. But if they like curate their roster a little bit more, so you have to be pre-selected for this. So you have all these other services that obviously in the DIY distribution you don't have, because you don't manage, because you don't know them. And those are the pros. I think that they may give you an advance. They pitch for you usually in a better way, because they do have the relationships that you may not have with DSPs, and they have marketing money for you. But there is also some cons, that if you are not a priority, if you are too small, if you are not working, if you are not releasing music, you may get at the bottom of the line with them, right? And that's something to be considered. You also need to be prepared to work with an aggregator or a label services company, because if you understood the system, then you are ready to, right?
Got it.
And talking about specific relations with DSPs through aggregators or label services companies, well, that's their job. But again, they usually work on a sign everything model, right? It's understandable. It's a business. They need volume. So that's why how they share and thrive. But this may not be ideal for a new project. And the DSP relations that you may or may not achieve in the starting point of your career should be achieved here or should be maintained here. So communications is of the essence, and if you have the know-how, you can follow the DIY steps, even though you're signed with an aggregator. I have friends, musicians, that their aggregators or the label services companies just sign them and they then forget about them. And this is something that you should be prepared for if you are going this way too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Sergio, we have a question now from Claire, and she's asking about how can we hear a little bit more about pitching, and what are some of the best practices, what to exactly include in this deck that you mentioned? Maybe if you can break it down a little bit in terms of the marketing drivers, what that means, what is included. Yes. For example, let's try and create a template. If we're imagining a 6-slide pitch to a DSP, what's going to go on each slide and how does that work?
Okay, everyone will tell you, use the For Artists tool of pitching. That's something that you need to use, because if DSPs are telling you to, you do that. And that may not get to the right editor, whatever, but you should do it because they will notice, first of all. And then the personal pitch, like the actual pitch that you're getting to a real person, for me, it's very simple. You should include the name of the track, the UPC, the link, obviously, the listening link to the track. Please, if you're pitching to several DSPs, don't forget to change the name, because usually people use templates and they send, hey, Amazon to Spotify, or hey, Apple to Amazon. So that's very important. It's a super common mistake. Don't make that. So name of the track, UPC, listening link, the artwork, the cover artwork for the track, a very brief description of the project, very, very brief description of the project, then a very brief description of the track, then the playlist wish list, and that's it. Thanks for considering us, and we will be more thankful if you add us to a playlist. For me, that's like the essence of the pitch.
Great. Thank you so much for breaking that down. Sergio, just in case there are some really new artists, could you quickly tell us what UPC is, what ISRC is, and why they need to be included in the pitch, in case someone's wondering?
The codes that will identify your track in the systems, and that the DSPs can keep track and easily find the tracks in their systems. That's basically the.
And you get them from your distributor. So in
Yes.
case you're wondering, that's how you get access to them, to include them in your pitch.
That's important, right? The distributor should give you those codes for you to.
Exactly.
Or
Claire,
you can go to the workstation. Sorry, Vishnuti. You can go to the workstation. For example, we work with the Orchard, and there's a workstation that they give access to, and you have all the codes of all your releases there. You can get them, have access to this, or you can ask them to your distributor or aggregator. Yeah.
That sounds great. Claire, I hope your question is answered. I think the main idea is to have a really clear idea, a concept, a story behind your release, and also your artist bio, which is going to be in the pitch. So I think that's really how you would position yourself in the best way possible, is when you have a strong idea with your release already and you're able to articulate in a short, clear pitch. Usually the Spotify for artists pitch at the back end is about 250 characters, if I'm not wrong. It's really short.
500. I think it's 500 now. But
500 characters. So it's like it's barely anything. It's like 4 sentences. So that's really what you're aiming for, like getting your point across as efficiently and as gracefully as possible. So that's kind of how you do it.
Going back to Claire's question, what I told is about the pitching of a track, and we are assuming that the DSP already knows the project. If we're going back to presenting the project, that's a different story. For me, it's 5 or 6 page EPK with an amazing photo of the artist or the band, then a brief bio, obviously where you're from, what's your sound, what's your inspiration, whatever, a brief bio for 4 paragraphs tops. Then what's next, obviously, if it's an album, if it's an EP, a breakdown of every song. That always has worked for us. Like a breakdown, this song is about this, and if there are collaborations, why, and in the end a link to the music. Great. And that's it.
All right.
For presenting the band or the project. Then there's pitching specific tracks, right?
Got it. Great. All right. So I hope your questions answered, Claire. And if anyone else has any questions, please feel free to drop them while we will continue this conversation. So we talked a little bit about the label services and what they bring to the table. I just want to ask you this, and I think everyone is also wondering this. What does a label do for you in 2023? And how important is it to be on a label? Is that something you need to aspire towards? Is that something you really need to get to reach a milestone in your career, or is just being independent enough? And do they really add enough value when you have so many resources, tools available to you, even as an independent artist? What's your take on that?
I was just discussing that with a group of people that work in the industry here in Mexico, and a couple of them work in big aggregators and a major label, and we all think that there's no need for a major. It's maybe utopic, but they do have some pros. Obviously, it's like they exist for a reason, right? But it all depends on where you are on your career. What do you want to achieve? Do you want to be Rosalia? Do you want to be not Taylor, but this big hit artist like Dua Lipa? You must aim for a major, maybe. I think it all comes down to the things that they do versus what they take from you. Okay, this is something very, very important, because a major label, of course, you get all the label services that we just talked about. Obviously, much more budget for marketing, for a release strategy. Maybe you can get press globally, of course, A&R services, right? The production, money for videos, money for a big producer that you won't be able to pay because it costs like $100,000 per track. So yeah, there are labels, indie labels, with which you can sign a distribution agreement, and they don't own you. They don't own your master. They don't own your rights. They just distribute you for a couple years, 3 years, 4 years, and then they let you go. They do obviously have an option on your contract to sign you for another 10 tracks, or another album. But they are flexible. I think that with majors, yes, the opportunities in terms of money are bigger, but you also can be, I don't know, if you are not a priority anymore, you will be let in the end of the road, and that's something that needs to be taken into consideration. But again, it all comes back in what are they taking for you versus what are they offering. If you are in a point of your career that you are about to do, I don't know, maybe we can measure this with not with streams, but with ticket sales. If you are selling 5,000 tickets in your city, maybe it's time to talk to a mayor, and maybe to get a super big advance, right? And check the contract, check what are they doing for you in marketing. If they have budget for videos, how many videos? If they have budget for out of home, if they have budget for global or regional marketing, that kind of things. If this budget is recoupable or not, right? Because maybe they can give you $1 million, but they will need to recoup that.
Can you please quickly also break down what a recoupable means? Just for people to know.
Yeah. Basically, if I'm a label and I give you $100,000 in advance for your next album, I will recoup that money with your royalties, right? So you won't see a dime of royalties till I recoup my $100,000. Basically, labels are a bank, right? With no interest, that's cool, but they are a bank, and if you don't make the 100,000 on streams, you can be there for years, right? And until you don't pay the money that they advance you, well, you will be like trapped there. There are also mayors that have booking agencies, like for example, Universal have GTS, and they have their own aggregators like InGroups, or these 360 deals that they can take from booking, they can take from management, they can take for streams. So it's a very complicated world. I think mayors really do work for some kind of artists on the mainstream side, the pop artists that are making lots of money, that they are able to sign this 360 deal in which the mayor takes care of basically everything on the booking, the distribution, and the A&R and marketing side. That may work for these big artists, but if you are thinking of breaking a niche or staying in the alternative world, it may be better to stay with a label services company or an aggregator, because there's also a thing with majors. Well, I don't exactly understand how it works with majors, but there are most indie labels, there's a double taxation. So when you get your royalty report, you will see that there's a percentage that goes to the label's aggregator, and then there's a percentage that goes to the label. So if the aggregator is charging 15%, the 85 that the other 85 will become 100, and then the label will take a percentage for you. So you are getting less money for your streams. Talking about specifically DSPs, right? So that's something to consider too. The double taxation. Which aggregator is this label working with, and what's the percentage that they want to take from you? Because I've seen cases that are truly awful, right? We were talking just last week of this lo-fi company in the United States, that if you see the artists that they work with, they are all alternative up and coming artists, and they are making millions they're getting millions of streams a month. Like, but when I tell you millions, it's like 50 million streams a month. And I just learned from one of the artists that they were actually not giving the reports to them. Like they told him, hey, because of our advance, you owe us $300. And it turned out that it was the other way. The label owed the musician $1,500. So like 4 times what they were saying the musician owed to them. So obviously there's lots of, there are good, there are bad people in the world, but you need, before taking the final decision, you need to see the contract, to see what they are taking. If you are willing to give that, if your position is better in the world, if you do have this relationship with DSPs, you may be able to keep the independent way, and that's something interesting. And not be afraid.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Sergio, that's a really good segue into my final question. And then if anyone has any questions, please do put them in the chat, because we're going to be closing the session soon. So my final question for you is to also talk a little bit about, this whole mood music movement. And just like, can you talk a little bit about like passive streaming on DSPs? Because I don't think it would have been possible if there was no Spotify, no Apple Music, no Amazon Music. So could you tell us a little bit more about that part of your life, and how does this whole thing work, and how artists can use this mood music movement to make some real money?
And no, it wouldn't be possible without the DSPs and without the pandemic. So some of us were actually benefited by the pandemic. And yeah, well, mood music or functional music is all this part of the DSP ecosystem. This works like this. If you are a frontline artist, you want to be on all these New Music Friday playlists, and you will be doing press and marketing, and you will be promoting your music so lots of people can listen to it, get in the radio, play gigs. Okay, that's frontline. The mood music or functional music side is a whole other ecosystem. It works so different. We're talking here about instrumental music for wellness, to sleep, meditate, whatever part of your life that you want to accompany with music, functional or mood music will be there. Chill out, lo-fi, solo piano, solo guitar, noise, nature sounds. Noise and nature sounds, by the way, called non-music in the DSP language. So yeah, as I'm telling you, it's a whole different world. It doesn't need marketing. It doesn't need press, PR, that kind of thing. You just need to get to the right POC on DSPs and get playlisted. And these playlists are amazing because one's track can be there for months. If you compare it with the frontline playlist that they will put you there and get you out in 7 days, 15, maybe 30 days. In a mood music or functional music playlist like peaceful piano or lo-fi beats, you can be there for. We have artists that have been in lo-fi beats for 1.5 years, just for you to make an idea. So as there's a big market for functional music, because with the pandemic and people staying home, obviously people started listening to more music, and this wellness thing and mindful ambient music started developing into other kinds of music that help you to pass your day in the lockdown in a better way. So that's when the mood music ecosystem started growing. And I don't know, as I'm telling you, it's like you don't need the amazing thing is that you don't need to put the PR work out there. Just finding the right person with the right kind of music, with the right playlist curators, and you can get there. And if you get there, you can stay there in the playlist for a long time and just see the stream count grow. Of course, there are lots of labels, distributors that are working with this kind of music. Lo-fi, I think is the genre that everyone wants to do. Lots of people are doing this, but when you actually get the contact, it's a very it's a different way to make more money, and you can have your frontline project working with all the energy that you want and need to give it for the frontline side, but you can always have an AKA and maybe release ambient EP, a lo-fi EP, and keep growing with another income. Like, it's another type of income, but using the DSPs also and the other world. So I don't know if I was clear with this.
Yeah, I think you were very clear. I think we can also take some questions if someone has any. I think there's one question from someone. They're asking, on what basis are compilers of playlists paid, if they are paid at all? So I think they mean people who are curating playlists. And I think so far, Sergio, we've been talking about people employed by these companies, right? So, or are we also talking about, like, people who just curate playlists and have a lot of followers, and then how does that work? Do you do those kind of pitching things? Because those are kind of illegal, I think.
We're talking about not editorial playlist curators, right? Like, we're talking about user-generated content here. You see, like, playlists created by users.
Okay, got it. So then, how are those people paid? And like, if you're pitching to them, are you paying them to get it on the playlist, or how does it work?
That maybe there's something that we need to understand here. It's like, there are editorial playlists, algorithmic playlists, and like these mixed personalized playlists, right? Those are just for DSPs. It's like the official playlist, like the editorials are curated by humans. The personalized are curated by a mix of humans and the algorithm. And the algorithmic obviously are just generated by the algorithm, and they show you the music that you may want to listen to. Okay, then they obviously get paid by the company they work for. And when we're talking about user-generated content, like you and me creating a playlist, and this playlist, for whatever act of God, gets I don't know, 100,000 followers, because we are excellent curators and people like our taste in music, we don't get paid, obviously. And we're not looking, like people like you and me or normal people, we're not looking for payment or for this. Then yes, there are these scammers that actually sell you the like packages in which they do have playlists that they've been working for years, but we don't know if they bought the followers, if they what they did to get those followers, and they are selling you these packages of, hey, I will add you to 3 of my 17 playlists, and I will charge you $150 per week, and I can assure you that you will get, I don't know, 16,000 plays for your track. Maybe it's not illegal, but it's not ethical, because they charge more than you will get in return for those plays. Okay, so if you think that in a regular basis, let's say that Spotify is paying 0.0025 cents of a dollar for a stream, just do the math. If you're paying $150 for 3 ads in 3 playlists, and you're getting 20,000 streams for that, it doesn't add up. It's again, it's not illegal, but it's not ethical. And lots of musicians get caught in this stupid idea that paying for an ad in a user-generated content playlist will help them to achieve something. And it's not.
Yeah, I understand. So I know we're out of time, but I have one final question for you about user-generated content and playlists. Is that something that you try and actively pitch for as well? And how do you get in touch with them?
What's that again?
So for example, if you and me create a playlist and with act of God, we have achieved millions of followers and someone wants to pitch their music to our playlist, how are they then getting in touch with us?
Yes, well, there's actually a lot of well, at least in Mexico, legit music influencers on TikTok. You know that these guys that recommend music and whatever, and they do have their playlists. And well, basically, is send a message on Instagram, send a message on TikTok. Some of them actually, yeah, they do ask for payment, but if they are legit and you can tell, because obviously there's a background, there's an institutional email, you know, there's like more formality, but they are asking for money because they don't only add you to a playlist, but they do make posts, they do create content for your song or for your artist. Like they may give you a couple TikTok posts, one Instagram reel, and then add you to their playlist that has, I don't know, 350,000 followers, and they are constantly renewing the playlist. And you know, it's not something that, it's not a scam, it's just like a marketing package. And that's another thing that it's interesting, that maybe Lilian in the next talk will talk about it, working with TikTokers and having your music on TikTok. That's something that could really be life-changing, career-changing, obviously.
Thank you for that, Sergio. I'm going to answer one last question, actually, and then we'll close this. So someone's asked how songwriters are tracked and paid, because the data usually requires artist and label rather than songwriter and publisher details. So I think I'll just quickly answer this. Basically, on the front, when you see a DSP, it may look like that they're only collecting artist and label data, but when you do distribute your music, you do have to put in your codes that you get when you are a songwriter and you sign up with a PRO and you register your songs with the PRO, and that is then also linked with your ISRC codes. So every time the plays are generated on a DSP, they actually send these royalties to your PRO, which is a collection society. So you need to look up what collection societies are there in your country and then essentially sign up to them. So for example, since we're talking about Kirklees, you need to write to PRS and register your catalog. And if you have music on Spotify, it will reach PRS. So that's as easy as it gets. And that's how it collects the royalties. If you are independent and you don't have a publisher, then there's an option to be self-published. Some PROs allowed it and some don't. So you need to check with your local PRO if that's possible. And otherwise, you sign up with an admin publisher such as Songtrust to sort that part out. But that's something that we can actually cover in another session on publishing, because we do not want to trouble Sergio with those questions.
Yeah, it's not my area of expertise on the publishing side, but of course, when you talk about DSPs, you just need to trust your distributor and the reports that they give to you, right?
Yeah.
It's and there's Excel sheets that you can actually check if you want to see how much are they paying you for each track in each country at what time of the day that it was played. So
yeah, exactly. It's a pretty interesting sheet. So if anyone's here an artist, they can actually look that up. Okay, we're gonna close this session, but I'm gonna drop a link to the ecosystem if someone's not on it yet. So please do join it for our upcoming sessions. We have a session coming up with Pablo, who actually connected us to Sergio for this talk today. So thank you so much, Pablo, for making this happen. And thank you, Sergio, for making time for this. You were absolutely amazing and we learned a lot from you. We have a topic on converting gatekeepers for successful PR campaigns with Pablo, where he's going to talk about how we can pitch properly to the journalists and the PR side of things that Sergio talked about a little bit today. And then we're also going to be talking to Lilian about an artist DNA workshop, where she's going to take us through the nitty-gritties of creating an artist brand. And she has a really cool workbook for everyone who joins the workshop. So we will be able to actually create an artist identity for our projects together with her. So it's going to be really exciting. I hope you guys can join for it. Sergio, again, thank you for your time. We really appreciate you and we really had a lot of fun. with this.
Thank you, and I hope my experience is helpful for whatever you are trying to achieve. Lots of success for everyone.
Thank you. So I'm going to stop recording this now, but have a good day, everyone, and we will see you for the next sessions. Ciao.